is, what is your figure? And I'm going to come on to that in a second, and it's all going to make sense. But I want to give you an example of what I'm going to be talking about. And I'm going to tell you the story that in 2015, when I was a year and a half running into my business, and I desperately needed help. I really needed somebody to come and save me, because at the time I was burnt out, I was fried, I was disconnected from Gem. There was no kids, as in no new kids then. I didn't know what direction that my life was going to go. I didn't know how to put together any type of structure or anything. And I didn't have a lot of money at all. And, well, I thought I didn't have a lot of money. But there certainly wasn't an inkling of there that I could invest in myself to help. And then I came across a guy who was my very first mentor. His name was Ricky. And I was following him on social media, like many of you guys do with me, right? And I got into his world. I did his low-level membership, and it was affordable. It was like, I think, 40 quid, 45 quid a month. And then he sent an email saying that he was looking to work one-to-one with people. Very similar to the strategy that I use. And I was like, God, I'd love to do that. And I just filled out the form and got chatting to him. And he gave me an hour and a half of his time. And I just unravelled and brain dumped everything on him. Okay. And then he told me the cost to work with him. And the first thing I said is that I can't afford it. And I didn't even know whether I could afford it. I didn't even know. I just said I couldn't afford it. He said it was like, I think it was like £500 a month, which is really cheap. And I was like, oh God, I just can't do it. And he said, I want you to go away and do an exercise for me. I want you to go and print statements off for the last 3 months. And with your red pen, highlighter pen, highlight everything that you've spent money on that you didn't really need to, whether it was entertainment, whether it was BS, whether it was just Amazon spending, whatever. So that's what I did. I went away and I scribbled the red marker over there. And then the other thing he said to do was, with a yellow highlighter, highlight how much money you spent on yourself, developing you personally and professionally. And I went through that 3 months and there was nothing. I went through the last year, there was nothing. I went through the last year and a half, nothing. I hadn't spent any money on myself to be able to develop personally, professionally, build the skills that I need. And here's the thing, when we leave college, school, college or university, school and college are pretty much free education, right, until we get to 18. We get to go through a system of consistent development, and we develop ourselves personally and probably professionally in terms of getting us ready. But when we're 18, we leave the real world. And for some, they won't spend any time developing themselves right throughout their lives, which is why they end up where they do within their life, right? Where is the planning to handle life as a 40-year-old? Well, you left college at 18 when your life was completely different, right? You were chasing girls at 18, but now you're married, you've got 2 kids, you've got a mortgage, you've got a job. You don't know how to understand some of the things that are going through your head. But then we've done nothing about it in terms of investing in ourselves, but we're spending money on other things, right? So we're spending money on like booze. How much money does people spend on booze? How much money do people spend on nice cars? How much money do people spend on like Amazon spending sprees or Black Friday spending sprees? Do you know what I mean? And then we had this question of like, well, why am I in this state? Like, if you go back through your statement, it was such a great exercise for me because it made me realise that I could afford mentoring. And I realised that I was spending so much money on BS, on rubbish, on booze. Like the amount of money I was spending on booze to deal with the overwhelm and the stress and bury my head in the sand, right? And it was incredible to go through that. And I would honestly say it's one of those pinnacle moments that changed my life. Because I think in order for us to grow and be successful and move forwards, I don't believe that self-help books do it. Okay, people go through self-help. People brag about how many books they've read, but how much have you actually consumed in those books, right? I would choose one book over 1 year and study and rinse that book until I practiced everything before moving on to the next book, right? So buying books is not really going to help, okay? How many times have I put out free content? How many times have I put out free shows and people just don't watch them, right? They just don't watch them. How many times have I done 5-day free courses? I've been doing them since I did them from 2018 to 2022. And one of the reasons that I stopped doing them was because of the frustration at the lack of people showing up, because it was frustrating. I was literally just wasting my time. So somewhere along the line, there was this step up from doing lots of free stuff for people. And there's lots of free outlets for you. There is multitude. There's over 1,700 videos on my YouTube account that would help people change. But what I realised is that when I hired Ricky, my first mentor, is that as soon as you put skin in a game, it changes the outcome of how you show up, because you have an investment in something. When you don't have an investment in something, that is when you don't show up. Okay, because we take for granted all of the free content, all of the podcasts, not just me, but lots of different coaches and people do. I did. I took it for granted. In my first year of business, I went onto YouTube and it worked for me because I had an investment to try and save my house, because I needed to find something to help me build I understand business. So it worked for me then. But then when we build up the business, I stopped growing, I stopped developing, I stopped investing in myself. So there has to be something that really has to take you to the next level. And there is a level of almost fear of investing money on yourself. And that fear, I think, is triggered by, like, what am I going to get from this? What am I going to get out of it? What if I get scammed? And people don't necessarily value personal and professional development or see it as a priority. But then if you flip that, it's almost hypocritical when we say, God, I really need to change. I really need to do more on myself. I really need to learn how to lose weight. I really need to learn how to be accountable. I really need to learn how to connect with my wife. I'm burnt out. So on one side, we're saying it's not a priority because we're not investing in ourselves. On the other, we're struggling the most and life is miserable because we're not changing. Do you know what I mean? And like one of the guys just commented there, self-worth. I don't value myself. How do I see myself? And one of the things that I try to explain with some of the guys that I work at a higher level, try and get into that brain of theirs, is that they are the assets of their business, right? So for the business owners that I work with, you are the asset of your business. So it's your responsibility to make sure that that the value of your asset is as high as it can be. And that means consistently developing yourself with skill sets and improving yourself all of the time. So one of the strategies that I do is that every quarter I try to invest in something new to learn a new skill set. So whether it's finances, whether it's creating content, whether it's learning about myself, whether it's learning to improve my relationships. And it's always going, right, the sacrifice is, do you know what? I can't go out and spend 200 quid on a night out. Nor would I want to. But there are certain things I have to sacrifice financially so that there is a budget for my own personal and professional development. And I spoke to one guy the other day who wanted to come on our Black Friday offer. And he said he couldn't afford it. And then I asked, do you manage your accounts? And he said no. So how would you know if you can't afford it? And there lies the problem, right? We're not managing or controlling ourselves. The spiral of us not showing up doesn't just lead into disconnect with the wife, putting on weight. It means that you don't manage your finances. You don't know what's coming in. You don't know how to manage it. You don't know if you can afford it or not. If you printed off a statement sheet and over the last 3 months you worked out how much money you spent on entertainment, on Amazon spending sprees, just on BS that you don't need, right? And you tallied that up and gone, could have spent that on myself in terms of hiring a PT to lose this 3 stone, or like investing in a process or a course that develops your planning or your structure, right? Or your happiness in life, or finding someone that can help you do that. Do you know what I mean? But yet we keep going round in this cycle where nothing changes, because nothing changes from your end. And reading a book is great. It gives you an insight, but it doesn't change you. It doesn't change it doesn't reprogram your mind. Watching videos on YouTube is great, but it doesn't reprogram the stuff that's going on in here. So you have to then evaluate what is a priority. And this is where it comes down to that you don't see yourself as something worth investing in. It means that you are low on self-belief. It means that you're low on self-value. It means that you don't recognize how incredible your life could be, the potential that you could have if you conditioned this. If you go to the gym and you lift weights, you build these, the pecs, the abs, the legs. But when you do the work on in here, you have that same strength, that same control, the same coping mechanisms, the same decision making. But we don't do work on this. Everyone does work on this, but not enough on this. Okay. And I just wanted to bring that up because I think it's important that you do that. And I would say, if you have time, go and do that exercise and see how much money you've spent on yourself, on your own personal and professional development over the last 12 months. And it will probably give you a really good idea about where you are today, and the reason that you're not progressing. If you ever want to make that progression, and you know that you can't do it by yourself, and the YouTube videos and the books are just really not doing anything, and you're still saying the same things, and you're still burying your head, and you're still drinking the booze to hide from it, and you're still low on self-belief, then that is a real eye-opener in terms of saying, maybe I should invest in the asset. Remember, our slogan is lead you to lead them. If you don't lead you, if you don't invest in you, you'll never lead anything. Okay? Have a great weekend. If you're coming up to Birmingham tomorrow, more of that hard-hitting stuff. And then if not, I'll see you on Monday. It's been a pleasure. Have a good weekend.